Hey everybody, it's Scott. I'm here talking about the GURPS system again. Please, I need every subscriber I can get, so hit like and subscribe at the bottom so that you can be alerted when new content comes out. I need every subscriber I can get, trying to get to that 1,000 mark. It's a very limited hobby. 4th edition is out. I prefer to talk about the 3rd edition system, which I believe is better. So we're going to have a limited audience. So please, again, click like and subscribe. But here we go. So as you can see, I have the combat map laid out here. I've got some heroes. We'll zoom in on those guys there for a second. This is Tobias and Corbin, and we've got Dron here, the barbarian, and they are good examples of different types of characters in the game. Tobias is a mage. He's got mind reading powers, whereas Corbin is a fencer, and Dron is a barbarian with a huge unbalanced axe. Over here on the other side, we have some mercenaries, one with a shield, one without, and they have a couple of archers with them. The archers, one being on this cliff, and he is looking for anybody that might be searching for their hideout. They're making their rounds. The same thing over here. We have Tobias, who is up on a cliff, who is hoping to spot lookouts before they're spotted. So it just so happens they all stumble upon each other at the same time. Now in 3rd edition, there are initiative rules for surprise, and let's talk about those. Alright, now before we begin any combat, we have to answer one important question, and that is, are you wearing a helm? If you will look at the charts here in the basic book, you'll see a little note that says all combat skills are at -1 if their characters are wearing light plate, heavy plate, half plate. Those are metallic armors, and actually what that means, it sounds like if they're just wearing armor they get -1 because the armor is so bulky and heavy, but that's actually not the case. It is because they're wearing a helmet, and I can show you that on page 71 in the basic book. It talks about right here, effective weapon skills are reduced by 1 because of helmets. It also shows more clearly on the armors listed on page 72 that all combat skills are -1 due to the helm. So that is due to the helm that you're wearing. In my game, I make it simple enough. Half plate, light plate, heavy plate, a metallic helm of some kind is going to cause that -1 to your combat skills. Even if it's a pod helm, it's going to shift and move. You're just not going to have the vision and the ability to move your head about like you would if you were wearing cloth armor or something like that. The Great Helm is the only helm noted on page 210 that gives the characters a -1 to their weapon skills. I apply it to all helmets simply because that is what the chart shows on page 72 of the basic book, and also it mentions it on page 71. It seems to me all metallic helms would cause that penalty. If a character has a helm that doesn't cover his ears, I would not give him the penalty as shown on the page 71 that talks about the negative to hearing checks and sight checks. If the helmet doesn't cover the face, doesn't cover the ears, that penalty doesn't apply, obviously. But it's very important to note which characters have helmets, which characters don't before the combat begins, because that way you know who's going to receive that penalty and who's not. I'm going to mark these 2 characters with helms. They're the only ones that have them. With a marker that will show that the helms are on there, and let's see here, we'll use a purple marker to indicate that these 2 guards have helms on and will receive that -1 penalty when it becomes their turn to use any combat skill. Alright, now that we know who has a helm on, it's time to talk about surprise. There are 2 types of surprise: partial surprise and total surprise. The GM is responsible for determining which one takes place, if it takes place, and how it takes place. There may be rolls required or not, the GM's given a lot of leeway to determine whether or not surprise takes place. Again, you don't want to railroad your players. I wouldn't let someone jump in, a dragon, leap into the room, crashing through the wall, and attack by surprise and massacre the party. That's just me. Let's talk about partial surprise first, and then we'll talk about total surprise. They're very similar, but they are a little different. Partial surprise takes place when both sides are expecting possible combat. In our scenario that I've built here, definitely, if any surprise takes place, I would say it'd be partial surprise. If assassins jumped out of these trees right here beside Tobias, there may be total surprise, but with this much distance, there would be partial surprise, definitely. In partial surprise, if it takes place, both sides roll 1d6 and try to get higher than the other party. The leaders both roll 1d6. Everyone doesn't roll, just the leaders. If one side is lower, they are surprised, and for the roll of 1 dice, that many seconds, they are mentally stunned, cannot defend themselves. They just sit there in shock as the other party comes toward them. They may not realize exactly what is going on. The smarter characters here definitely have an advantage because they can snap out of this by making an intelligence roll. If you partially surprise a bunch of dumb orcs, you may get right up on them, and before they even realize what's happening, and start attacking them, and then they wouldn't even get to defend themselves if they rolled really high on the number of seconds it takes for them to start trying to snap out of the surprise. On the other hand, total surprise is different. Total surprise, the characters roll again 1 dice, and they're mentally stunned, and there's no rolls involved or anything. They just totally surprise their victims. So it's pretty similar. Now in both cases, the victims, once the initial time has ran out, start rolling against their intelligence each turn to snap out of it, and they can act normally once they make that roll at the beginning of their turn. If they don't make that roll against their intelligence, they're still mentally stunned. They just, they don't get to defend themselves. They're just attacked. The big difference there is in the partial surprise. Each turn after the initial time is allotted, they get +1, then +2, then +3 to snap out of the surprise. With the GURPS combat system, that may be way too late. But they might get lucky and roll a 1 on the d6 roll to see how many seconds that they're mentally stunned before they can start coming out of it. So let's do an example of that. What would I do as a GM here? Probably I would allow surprise for 1 second. Again, the GM is given a lot of leeway to determine if any surprise takes place at all. I don't think these guards are going to be surprised and then run all the way across this combat field and attack them, and them never know what's happening. They can't draw their sword or anything. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 30 yards. You're looking at a third of a football field. I don't think he's going to run across a third of a football field and a henchman not even be able to take his sword out and defend himself. I might give him a -1 the first round. Again, surprise is very malleable for the GM, which is nice. But let's say, for argument's sake, that there is a partial surprise. Perhaps we have to make that initiative roll. Both sides will roll 1d6. I get a 5 for the good guys, and I get a 3 for the bad guys. So the good guys have the smarter leader as well, and the smarter leader gets +1. Nobody has combat reflexes or tactics, which also give you a automatic bonus. And there's no real advantage as the GM that I'm going to give either side here. It looks pretty cut and dry to me. So the good guys did succeed. The bad guys did not. I will say the bad guys stay in place, kind of gawking, and they will get -1 to any active defenses they take on the initial attack. Just being fair to the bad guys there, there's a lot of room between the two parties. That's how the partial surprise works. Again, all these rules are on page 122. You'll find the surprise rules that say that the GM is responsible. You'll also see that combat reflexes ignores these type of rules on page 20. You can read about combat reflexes there. The initiative roll is given a bonus if you have combat reflexes. Pretty neat little advantage. Partial surprise, you can read about that on page 123. You have total surprise, which is listed on page 122. And then there's attack from above, which is also noted on page 124 of the basic book, which gives the rules for animals dropping out of a tree or elves dropping out of a tree, guerrilla fighters, that kind of thing. There's a lot more rules there that I'm going to talk about at this point on surprise, as that's rarely going to happen, but I encourage you to be familiar with those as well. Again, please click like and subscribe so you can watch all the episodes and put them together about GURPS combat. I'm really excited to talk about this subject. I've played this game for decades. I love the rule system. It's just fantastic, and I want to get everyone used to them as well. Again, join us at Facebook. We have GURPS 3rd edition. It's a group that you can join. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me there. I love answering any rules questions that anybody may have. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.